If you're playing worship guitar and your electric guitar sounds like a weak, muddy mess compared to everyone else on stage, it's probably not your amp, and it's probably not your guitar, and it's probably not your playing either. It's because you're using acoustic guitar chord shapes on the electric guitar without making the relevant tweaks. Now, there's nothing wrong with using open chords on the electric guitar, but you do need to make some specific tweaks in order for these voicings to sound good. Let me go ahead and give you a demonstration of using basic open chords without the tweaks, as well as the same open chords but with some minor tweaks, and then you can hear the difference for yourself. And afterwards, I'll do the exact teaching on these, show you the exact note for notes on how to do this, along with some helpful chord diagrams on screen. Let's go ahead and check it out. Now, before we dive in, I just want to be clear that there are some incredible voicings all over the guitar neck that are not open chords, like we've just shown you in this example, and we cover those extensively both on this channel and in our courses. But today, our focus will specifically be on open chord tweaks. And here's the thing, open chords aren't just for beginners. You see, professional worship guitarists use open chords all the time because the way the open strings ring, you can just not quite replicate that same sound with fretted notes. The difference is that pro guitarists know what tweaks to make that transforms these basic open chords into electric guitar gold. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what I did and how to make this transformation happen. And then by the end of this video, you'll never play a basic open C chord the same way again. Let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, so how do you go ahead and make these tweaks? Well, there's three things that I want to show you that you can use to transform these open chords into really great sounding voicings on the electric. The first point is going to be all about strategic note removal. And the whole goal for that is just to create some space in the mix, because when you play a full chord like this, especially with a dirty sound like this or even this, as you can hear, that's a very muddy sound. Now, the solution is when you know what notes that you can remove from the chord in order to create some breathing room. So it's not always what you add, but it's sometimes what you remove. So for example, let's go ahead and look at a C major chord like this. If I play that in the standard fashion of a C major chord, it sounds like that. And I've purposefully got too much drive and delay on here than what you would normally use for a chord like this. But that's the kind of sound that you're going to use in your playing. So instead of playing it like this, you can actually go ahead and just mute that E note on the D string. So I'm just going to not play the D string at all, and you can see that on the chord diagram. And then I'm going to add in this pinky on the G note on the 3rd fret of the E string, because in my C chord I already have a G note here, and I'm just adding it there as well. So now, instead of playing C like this, I can play C like this. As you can hear, that makes a very big difference, and you are able to remove that muddy low third, and I can add in that high note, and that creates this kind of a chimey, bell-like quality in your chord that other instruments can then go ahead and fill some of that harmonic space. So for example, if I play C like this, to an F like this, can you hear how much better that sounds? C, If I were to play standard C to a standard F, it'll sound like this. Very muddy. And even that chord just doesn't sound good. So what did I do with the F? Well, instead of playing F like this, which would be 3, 2, 1, 1, instead of playing that F, I'm not playing the G string at all, so I'm removing that third, and then the C note over here, I'm just doubling it down there. So can you see between C and then F, I've done the same thing. I've removed the third in each instance, and then I doubled one of the other chord tones. So now that I can actually I can push my quill tab back down. I'm full drive here now. I've got my volume control all the way up. Now I can play C to F like this. Which sounds way better than the open chord versions. You can just hear how that second way just doesn't sound good at all, whereas this just sounds so much better. So there you can see that in action when we remove the third and potentially add in another chord tone. You can also go and do that for any of the other chord shapes that you might know from the acoustic. Just remove that third. Here we have G in a standard way. If I strum it, it's not going to sound nice. Whereas if I remove that third and then I take the D note and I double it over there, so now I've got these three notes playing a G. Listen to that. It sounds way better. So C, F, and G. Sounds so much better. You can also take an E chord, for example. If I play a standard acoustic open chord shape E, that's my third. It adds a bit of muddiness to that voicing, so I can actually just mute that G string entirely. So it's going to look like an E minor, but it won't be an E minor because I'm not going to play the G string. But listen to this E. Sounds so much better just by removing that third, as opposed to this chord has got a lot of information in it, and it makes it hard for that to cut through the mix. So the name of the game here is just to find the notes that adds a bit of muddiness to the sound, remove it entirely, and then from there, at other times, you can go ahead and add in some additional notes. So that is our first point, which is removing the third, and where possible, duplicate some of the other chord tones in order to get some more chimey sounding chords. And then the great news is, like I've demonstrated, these chord shapes can be used with overdrive and distortion and delay, but they're going to sound nice. It's going to be a solid wall of sound that will also cut through the mix, and it's going to leave space for the other instruments. Let's go ahead and check out point number 2. All right, so our second point is all about using common tones. A common tone is simply a chord tone that's going to exist in multiple chords. So for example, if I look at, say, C, D, E minor 7, I could do this. C, G, D, E minor 7. So you can see those same notes I've got these same notes ringing throughout, so that's known as a common tone. So you want to find some common tones between these chord shapes, because that makes your playing sound a little bit more like glue. What that means is it doesn't sound like you are playing, let's take this example, C, G, D, E minor. See, the jumps are too big. C, G, D, E minor. Or even if I just played with normal chord shapes, C, G, D, E minor. Every time I play a chord, it sounds different. Whereas if I do this, see how those two notes, in this instance it's a D and a G, by keeping those common tones between my chord changes, it doesn't sound like I'm jumping between chords, or it's too many things that are changing at the same time. And then every time something changes, the way that our brains are wired, we have to pay attention to it. It's like we live here by the ocean, so sometimes you just stare at the ocean, and if there happens to be a whale that breaches in the distance, your eye just immediately catches it, because that's now something that has changed, and your brain is wired to spot something that has just moved. Now, when we are playing worship, we want to create an environment that's going to be conducive to people engaging and entering into worship, right? But when we are playing things where stuff is changing the whole time and there's some other information and noise and chaos and whatever happening, the congregation hears that and it pulls them out of the moment. They notice it, and as a result of that, the change has now become a distraction rather than serving. So that's why you want to try and have as little change as possible when you can for these kind of guitar parts, because I'm still playing the chords. I'm changing from a C to a G to a D to an E minor. It just happens to be C add 9, G5, D sus4, and E minor 7, but those common tones acts like a glue between these chord shapes, and therefore it's much easier for the congregation to latch onto. Also, in our introduction, I played F like this, C like this, G like this, and A minor like that. So even just that G note, it's that constant note between all of the chords, which then gives me an F add 9, a C5, a G5, and an A minor 7. So when you're working on your chord voicings, make sure that you try and find some of those common tones that can stay the same amongst different chords. And this is so useful because many of the notes that we play within our chords, they also belong to other chords, or they can be used as color tones in other chords. For example, if I play C, it's C, E, G. Those are my notes in the chord C. But if I play A minor, it's A, C, E. So both the C notes as well as the E notes belong to both of those chords. And if I put the G note that's in a G chord over the A minor, it's going to be like a minor 7. So these common tones is a great way in order for you to get some continuity between your chords, and it just sounds so much better, and therefore it's a smarter and more strategic way to play your progressions that's not going to be a distraction. All right, so let's check out our third and final pointer that you can use to spice up open chord voicings. And by the way, everything that I've mentioned, you can also apply these same pointers to chords that are not open chords, but we'll stay on point for now. Just know that these are universal principles that you can use in your guitar playing. Now, third and final point is all about integrating what's known as color tones, or also known as non-chord tones, for some character. What that means is instead of playing a straightforward C, you can go ahead and play C add 9, which will introduce some tension that you can then also use to spice up the voicings. And as you change your chords, that tension will also be resolved. Now, tension and resolution, that is an integral part in music. And without tension and resolution, everything is just going to be a flat line. So you kind of have to find that Goldilocks zone. If there's too much change the whole time, the congregation would not be able to enter into worship because they're going to be distracted. They're going to be pulled out of the moment by all of the noise and change happening. So it's too erratic. But if everything is a flat line and it's kind of super boring, imagine if there were just a keyboard player playing one pad for all of the praise and worship songs on a Sunday morning. That's going to be too boring. It's not going to invite people. It's not going to be exciting. So you want to find that balance between tension and resolution. And the way you do that is by using some of these color tones. Let me show you what I mean. When I play a C like this, I'm only playing chord tones. It's C, G, C, G. But when I play a C like this, and I'm adding in that D note, a D note is not in the C chord. Now I'm getting what's known as a C add 9. And then if I go to G, then it kind of resolves because that D is in the G chord. Another one, for example, is if I play a G like this, and I go to a D sus4, then that G note there is not in the D chord. It makes it a D sus4. And then the C, and maybe an E minor 7. So you want to look for these color tones that you can use to spice up your voicings. For example, if I play C like this to an F, you see that E note that was in the C chord, I can put that over the F. That now makes it an F major 7th or an F major 9 without a third. But just listen how cool this sounds when I'm introducing some of these color tones. Listen to that. That's a great way in order to get some movement and motion happening in your playing. And really the goal here is for you to develop a chord vocabulary where you, instead of just playing A minor, you can play A minor 7 or A minor 7 like this. So you've got some additional A minors to use, and then you'll use them as you see fit. Here's another cool way. For example, G. Doing there is I'm playing a G, then I'm adding the major 7s, then it's C add 9, that same note then becomes a sharp 11, E minor, that same note makes it an E minor, it's from E minor 7 to E minor 9, and then D sus4, D. So then these two notes those sounds just bring in some really great color and movement that is pleasing to the ear. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this lesson with 3 ways in which you can spice up open chords, which is basically removing the notes that make it muddy. That was point number 1. You can also double up on some of the other chord tones to give it more of a bell-like chimey quality. Point number 2 was using common tones between your chord shapes. And then our third and final point was adding in some non chord tones as color tones to go ahead and bring in some tension and resolution in your playing. Now, what I've shown you here today is just scratching the surface of what's possible when it comes to transitioning from acoustic guitar playing to electric guitar in a worship setting. So if you are looking for a complete roadmap that can guide you along the journey, where we cover everything from your gear selection, amp settings, advanced chord voicings, rhythm patterns, lead techniques, the whole works, I've created a comprehensive 4-week electric guitar blueprint specifically designed for guitarists who are making this transition from acoustic to electric guitar, where they realize that just playing the electric like you play the acoustic doesn't quite work, and they are looking for some detailed training, structured curriculum, as well as step-by-step guidance that will help them make that switch from basic acoustic guitar playing to confident electric guitar playing, along with access to a private forum where you can connect with guitar players all over the world, as well as with myself, get feedback on your questions, connect with other players, and it's really cool to connect with others who are on the same journey as you and also learn from other people's journey and insights. Well, all of that is included in our 4-week electric guitar blueprint. I've got a link for you in the description, and we'll also leave it in the pinned comment. And I invite you to check that out if you are looking for a structured path to make this transition yourself. Now, working on your chord vocabulary like we did today, that's essential, but here's the thing. The real driver that makes your chords and your notes come to life, that's rhythm guitar playing. So you can know every chord voicing in the book, so to speak, but if your rhythm guitar playing and your strumming, if that's more on the basic side and lacking, that's going to make your playing sound amateur. Now, I've got a detailed video right here that breaks down some essential rhythm guitar techniques that every worship guitarist needs to know. So go ahead and check that out, and I'll see you in the next video.